So just going to quick recap on what we've discussed on previous occasions. So really it's about what is the menopause. So menopause is the ending of fertility, and that in turn is the ending of your menstrual cycles. Remember, it's a Greek word, menopause, meno meaning monthly and pause meaning to stop. So it's the ending of fertility and the ending of your cycles in which you can have a baby and conceive naturally. It's about changing of hormone levels. So this is really about the ovaries producing less hormones. So they're fluctuating and the levels are decreasing, which of course the deficiency in the hormones causes the physical effects of menopause, which we know, hot flushes, anxiety, night sweats, and then the psychological things such as anxiety. We've got things like brain fog. We've got vaginal dryness symptoms. We've got low libido symptoms. We have lots of different physical and psychological effects, all related to deficiencies in hormones. The symptoms of menopause, they can start really from, they can start for some women and in their in their 30s. It is incredibly uncommon. But the majority of women start their menopausal symptoms of like mid-40s onwards. And obviously the symptoms can continue, the deficiency symptoms can continue for the whole of your life. But for the majority of people, they seem to level off and calm down and become far more manageable, sort of like in your late 60s type of thing. So hormone replacement therapy, I've spoken an awful lot about this through the webinars through the year. It's really replacing the exact hormones that your ovaries are no longer producing. And this is what we call like body identical HRT. So that the HRT that I prescribe, your GP prescribes, it's what we call body identical. They're the same hormones that your ovaries are no longer producing. And you're going to be supplementing those back into the body in creams and sprays and gels and things like that. Thank you very much. So today's presentation, it's about, is it just my hormones? Because we've covered lots of different subjects and lots of different areas of menopause, but this is this one topic that I think is really, really important. And the feedback that we had from last week's presentation was that it really resonated with many, many women. So I hope that you'll enjoy this and we'll get a lot from this. And please ask lots of questions at the end of the sessions. So is it just my hormones? Well, during the menopause, it's the fact that you're thinking, well, I don't feel myself. I feel rubbish. I'm not the person that I was. I don't know what's going on. I know I just don't feel myself. But they're thinking to yourself, well, is this just the menopause or what else is actually happening? So I think the first things to think about is really just to talk about the menopause itself. The menopause will affect every woman. So there isn't any woman that's going to avoid going through the menopause. It's a natural transition that can be quite problem-free for some women, but the majority of women do struggle with the symptoms of the menopause. So the symptoms of the menopause are caused by the reduced function and then the overall failure of the ovaries. So they just basically stop producing the female hormones that we understand, the estrogen, progesterone and testosterone. So they fluctuate and then they start to fail. And obviously during the post-menopausal stage, the ovaries aren't working at all. So no hormones are being produced. So in the early stages, so in the perimenopausal stages, you can still be having fairly regular periods, but your hormones are really going up and down, and they can really affect sort of like the physical and the psychological effects. So hormones are up and down. You get things like migraines and mood swings, and then hot flushes, your night sweats. So all these things are fluctuating and really affects women in a psychological way. So the hormones are fluctuating, and then obviously in the postmenopausal, things are heading down and down and down, and the reduction of all these hormones. So as I've said just previously, the symptoms of menopause that we understand is related to deficiency. They are deficiency symptoms. And I think that's very clear and very good just to remember that when we're thinking about menopause, that it's a hormone deficiency, and that's what creates the symptoms of menopause. So when will the symptoms of menopause start? Well, as I've said, menopause symptoms can start sort of like when you're, for most women, really from sort of like their mid-40s onwards, they might notice that they're not quite themselves. And they can go on for many, many years. And they affect everybody very differently. Some women have really horrendous physical symptoms. Some women have very few physical symptoms, but they actually have very bad psychological effects. So the anxiety and lack of confidence, etc. So it's really thinking about how menopause will actually affect each individual person, because that's it. It's about the fact that it will affect everybody differently. And so just because somebody has reacted in a certain way doesn't mean to say that you're going to react the same way, or you're going to need the same advice or treatments. It's all about individual treatments when it comes to menopause and management as well. So what can I do to treat my symptoms? There are quite a few things that you can do. You can certainly speak to your health professional, your GP. You'll speak to people within the workplace. You'll speak to your family, and you'll find out what their views and opinions are. And then you think, well, what you want to do. So is it the fact that you thinking, well, you know, maybe I need to sort my diet out, lose some weight, take on some exercise? Or is it the fact that, you know, you're really struggling with the symptoms and you desperately do need to speak to your health provider and talk to them about HRT and see if it will be beneficial for you? Hormone replacement therapy, as I've just said, it's about giving you back those hormones that your ovaries are no longer producing. So it's a like for like. And for the majority of women, HRT is incredibly safe and incredibly effective and can be taken long term. And HRT helps because it's just replacing back the hormones that your ovaries are no longer producing. And so it depends. It's about choices. It's about, do I want to live with these symptoms and carry on my life as it is now, feeling the way that I do? Or do I want to do something to maybe improve these symptoms, make the symptoms go away and improve my quality of life so I can spend the next 30, 40 years of my life not feeling the way that I do now? So it's just about thinking about what you can do yourself. So that's really about the menopause and how hormones are affected during the menopause. Thank you. But of course, what this evening's presentation is about looking at the wider picture. The wider picture is really about, well, we know that every woman's going to go through the menopause, but we've got all these other things going on in our lives that impact on our well-being as well, and they impact on our hormones. You know, we're at home, you know, are you looking after grandchildren, or are you an older mother looking after younger children at home, or maybe a bit of both? You know, children run you ragged at the best of times. They're absolutely exhausting, both mentally and physically. So you're going to be feeling absolutely shattered if you're running around after children or grandchildren all day long. And particularly if you're working, you know, either full or part-time, and then possibly on a day off when you can't just sit down and have some peace and quiet. You're looking after children as well. So there's just no time for you. And it's a case that we know that we all need to put time aside for ourselves, but actually doing it is a different thing completely. But if you are getting really tired because you are looking after everybody else within the house, you do have to think, you know, maybe I need to start to prioritise. Maybe I do need to think about putting some time aside for me and making sure that the children or the grandchildren can actually go home or go with somebody else for a few hours, just so that you can have a break. And then the other side, or the other end of the spectrum here with it all, is the fact that with menopause, it's about women's hormones, sort of like, you know, deficiency symptoms and the lack of hormones. But with teenagers, we're talking about their bodies being flooded full of hormones, which causes quite similar effects in strange ways. But obviously, we know all about moody teenagers, but living with hormonal teenagers when you're not feeling yourself can really be problematic, and it can be very difficult. There's lots of moods, there's lots of erratic conversations, maybe a lot of door slamming, and it just makes life more difficult. So you're feeling stressed, you're struggling, your brain isn't working properly, and maybe you just feel that everyone's having a go at you. And this is the joys of living with teenagers as well. Caring for ill partners or children, your day might be split to actually caring for other people within the household as well. You might be trying to do a little bit of work, or maybe you can't work at all. Maybe you've got carers in the house helping to support you care for an ill partner or care for your children. But all this is going to take its toll on your physical and your emotional well-being. And again, we've been talking about strained relationships. If you're with your partner, we've had some very difficult situations the last 18 months. A lot of people have been, forced to spend a lot more time with each other than under normal situations. And that in itself will cause a strained relationship. But you throw menopause into the mix and things can be really, really difficult. The lack of hormones and going through the menopause, it's a really challenging time for women. And it's very difficult to get your head around really what it means, because you don't actually understand anything that's going on. You just know you don't feel yourself. You don't feel the person that you were, but you don't particularly know why. And in this, women tend to push partners away. There's that lack of communication because they just don't know what to say. A lot of the time, it's just this feeling of sort of like being lost, and you just push people away from you because you just don't know what to say, do. You just sort of want to be left alone in your own little world, maybe just watching some box sets and eating ice cream or whatever. But and this is what people tell me. But it's more the fact you just generally want to be by yourself. We're all different, but this is generally the consensus of what women are always telling me. And it's that confusion. They don't understand how they feel the way they do. They've got physical symptoms, emotional symptoms of menopause, low libido, anxiety, weight gain. All this will put into a woman's head that actually she doesn't feel attractive. She doesn't like herself very much at this particular time for whatever reasons that is. And people tend to push partners away. So it's actually a very, very normal part of a relationship during the menopause. The financial aspects of it, well, it can be good or bad, because we can actually look at this, the fact that we have a lot more finance, a lot more money available. We're all earning some decent money. We're at the top of our careers. Or you can look at it, the fact that you're actually funding teenagers in university, or buying a house, or paying rent for them to live in. And it could be that actually your finances aren't in very good situations. You don't have a lot of money each month. And this is actually causing stress amongst you all as a family. And it may be that you'd love to try and reduce your hours at work, or stop that working at that job and actually go and do something very, very different. But you can't, you're tied to it because of the financial constraints that you have. You could have elderly relatives that actually either live in your own home, in which you're, solely responsible for, or you're visiting elderly relatives either in their own home or residential homes, etc. But whatever the situation, looking after relatives or having elderly relatives there, it's the guilt, it's the anxiety, it's the strain, it's the running around after everybody else, making sure that they're safe, that you don't feel that you're neglecting people. So it's this whole guilt that comes over. So like I said, you throw the menopause in with all these other feelings as well, that maybe you think you should be doing more to support them, that you think that you should actually maybe have them in your own home, that you can't see them as much as you want. And maybe you're just really too tired to go one particular night and you're regretting it. So there's lots of guilt, lots of regret all around, caring for elderly people, visiting elderly people. But you're busy trying to do a million things all at the same time, and something has to give. We know that we can't keep carrying on the way that we do. And then we have bereavement to deal with as well, that losing close family members, and again, we're all of that age in which we'll be losing family members. And that's an incredibly difficult thing to deal with. And again, we need a lot of support. and a lot of understanding from people around us. But when you've got menopausal hormones thrown in with all of these things, it really puts strain on everything. Empty nest syndrome. Again, this isn't something to be overlooked, but taken incredibly seriously, because, you know, as a woman, you have children, or they've suddenly left to go to university, to get married, they've just moved out, and suddenly this crazy, busy, chaotic house that's got clothes all over the floor, you're screaming and shouting at everybody, suddenly it's all very quiet. The house is very calm, and suddenly you think, well, what is my purpose here? You know, I'm the person that makes sure that everybody else is okay, and suddenly you find that you've got very few people to look after. And it's the adjustment of these times that I think we just need to be aware that it can affect you, and don't underestimate how it can impact upon you, and give yourself time, but realize that all of these conditions, all of these problems will have an effect on our physical and mental well-being. Thank you. So where have I gone? This is really, really important part of menopause, and I do talk to lots of ladies about this, because during the midlife, there's so many things are changing. You know, you're changing relationships, work-wise. You start to look at your life in a slightly different way, a different perspective. And is it the fact that you've actually gone through possibly half of your life now? You know, if you're in your 40s, in your 50s, you know, you're halfway through your life, and there's a lot of fear, and there's lots of thoughts and anguish and reflecting that goes on at this particular time of our lives, because we do know that we're going to get older, although we don't talk about it. You know, it is something that, you know, as women, we certainly don't like to discuss this. But it's just a sign that, you know, we're going through the menopause, and it is a sign that we're getting older, and nobody likes to be reminded of that. And there's the fear of getting old as well. And these things take an awful lot of adjustment and an awful lot of getting used to. And again, don't underestimate this. But, you know, if you talk to some of your girlfriends and your colleagues that are all the same age as yourself, and it's realizing that we all have different challenges, and we all view getting older in a slightly different way. You look at it in a very negative, but you can actually look at it in quite a positive way as well. So, but it's just being aware that things are changing, and most women do fear about getting old. There's that feeling that where has the old me gone to? And I think this is a huge, huge problem. You know, you look at yourself in the mirror and you can see the person staring back at you, somebody that you vaguely remember, that looks a bit familiar to you, but there's lots of wrinkles, there's some grey hair, maybe a few hairs growing in parts of your face that you wouldn't necessarily want. But you're looking at that person and you're thinking to yourself, well, where's that person gone? Where's that 20-year-old person gone to? The old me has just disappeared. And then there's that awful fear of, will we ever get that person back again? And this is a real problem with the loss of identity of who you are. Is it the fact that your children have gone, and it's that, you know, that the role of being, you know, a mom has now gone because you're not needed in that way that you were? So it depends how you identify yourself. Are you identified yourself as, you know, your name, as being a mom, as being a bit of a mix, you know, married to somebody, living with somebody, a partner of somebody? But it's about the loss of identity and who you are, and the sadness associated around this change in life. And it's about adjustments. It's that, remember, it's that transition. It's a natural transition, but it doesn't mean to say it has to be easy. But it's a transition that we all have to go through. And it's, again, it's that loss of who you actually are, the essence of who you are as a person. Because some women do find that when they become menopausal, and obviously it's the fact that you are unable to have children now, you know, and people react differently to this. You know, I speak to lots of women and they go, yay, I can't have any children anymore, no more periods, no more contraception. But for other people, they look at it in a very different way. It's the ending of a part of your life, which means you will no longer be able to conceive children. And that can be very difficult for some people to actually get their head around. So again, it's just being aware that everybody deals with these things in a very different way, because menopause is a lonely time. You're looking at yourself, you don't particularly recognise yourself. You look at yourself, you don't particularly like the way you look sometimes. You're getting older, you're aching a bit more, maybe not have as much energy as you used to. And particularly the way we've been living lately, you know, we've been forced into isolation and loneliness has prevailed, but menopause itself makes you feel lonely. And it does make you feel isolated, just the menopause itself. It's very difficult to relate your symptoms to other people. But that's why these webinars, like what we're doing, and particularly this one, it reaches out to everybody to say, you know, you're not alone, because so many women feel just like you. You feel you just want to lock yourself away and shut the door and just say, please leave me alone. And you just want to escape from the way that you feel at that time, because that's, again, this is how menopause is making you feel. It makes you feel that you aren't the person that you once were. Your mojo's gone. Mojo's got up and gone a long time ago, but it's a case of finding it again. And it's not a case that all these things are a bad thing. It's just about moving from one part of your life to another. And I think it's really important that we do reflect, we do work out what we've achieved and what we've wanted out of life and what we need to achieve in the future. What are your aims? What are your plans for the future? It's not something to be sort of like, you know, dreaded. It's more the fact of grasping the opportunities that we've got and thinking, right, this is my time. I need to sort my life out. I do need to change. I do want to move into the next part of my life with all these different things, and think of all the lovely things that you want to do. But self-reflection is a really important thing. I think, you know, if there's nurses here listening, you'll completely understand about reflection. We have to do it an awful lot with our work. But I think it's really, really important that we do a lot of reflection with our own personal lives as well. You know, what we're happy with, what we've achieved, what we want to do, and what our aims are for the future. But it's about accepting who we are now. We can never go back to being 20, and would we really want to? It's a big question, really, isn't it? But it's about accepting who we are and accepting that stage in our lives, that things have changed. But, you know, and they will never really be the same again. We're just going to be different people moving into the next stages. But look what you've achieved and what you've got out of life. And it's really looking at things that you want to do over the next 20, 30 years and making plans and you know, and seeing what you can achieve. Thank you. As I said about relationships, it can be very difficult relationships when you're going through the menopause. Partners won't have really much understanding of what you're going through, and I don't mean that in the fact that it's just that carelessness. They don't understand. They literally don't understand how your hormones have affected you the way that you have, because as a woman we rarely understand how we feel ourselves. We can't really put it into words. We can't describe it particularly well. We tend to shut away, push people away. Partners may be frightened of wondering what mood we're going to be in. We don't know what they think of us. We might think that they don't find us, we're not attractive to them anymore. We might find that we're not attracted to our partner anymore. There's so much that's going on. And it's a fact that menopause just makes you feel confused, low, and just not yourself. So as with partners, we tend to push people away. And then there's the guilt associated with that, because you're thinking, well, you know, my partner, you know, met me when I was so age. I looked like this. I did this, happy, carefree. And now look at me. I don't understand how I feel or why I feel the way I do. And I actually don't want to have any relationship with them. I just want them to leave me alone. I've got no libido. I'm not particularly happy with the way that I look. I don't feel great. So we tend to push people away. And then there's all that guilt associated with that. So round and round it goes, I suppose. It's about analysis of your relationship as well. This transition is really it really impacts on people, and you do have to think to yourself, am I happy in the relationship I'm in? And you know, and what do I want to do? Is this something, a relationship that is there for the rest of our lives? And for the majority of people it's going to be, and it's about working together and realizing this is how menopause makes you feel, and it makes you feel that you want to you know, adjust your relationship and move forward. And it's about working together. And as we go through the guilt and things like this, it is about working together as a couple. And so you can move forward and have a better next stage of life. Because until we start talking about it with our partners, we've got all this resentment that be building up. You know, you'll be thinking, you know, he hasn't complimented me lately, or your partner might be thinking, oh, you know, I haven't had any kind words, I've had no cuddles, they don't want to know me, they obviously don't love me anymore. And you'll be feeling, so everyone's got all these different feelings that are going on, and there's not a lot of talking, and more resentment will be building between you, which, as we know, once it starts to build, it's quite difficult to bring those walls down. The walls just kept getting higher and higher and higher. And there's lots of regrets as well, you know, am I with the right person? I should have taken that job in that other place, or maybe I got married too young, maybe I had my children too old. There's lots of resentment and lots of thoughts that go through your mind when it comes to relationships. And it's about moving forward. And this is what I'm saying. It's not so much about looking back. It's about thinking, well, this is what's happened. We've reflected on my life. And now it's about moving forward with our lives together, and how we can move forward and have a happier life together. But I do know lots of ladies that realise that actually they're either in the wrong relationship, or they've actually got divorced during the menopause purely because of their symptoms, and menopause just made them feel, I just want out, and either for the right reasons or the wrong reasons. I've spoken to quite a few ladies that have actually got divorced, that they actually look back now and thinking, I think that was the menopause. It wasn't really the true me talking. And I spoke to one lady a few days ago, and she said that her husband divorced her, and he said the menopause has created this, and this is how I'm feeling, and they got divorced because of it. So interesting. So it's a case that it's about, you know, don't make any rash decisions, but do think about, you know, is the relationship right for you? And if it is, it's about talking and building and having new beginnings, and making the changes that you need to do. Maybe you need to think about your career. Maybe there's something that you've always wanted to do, but you've never really had the courage or the guts to go and do it. But during the menopause, women tend to feel a bit more invigorated and a bit more, hey, let's just go and start this new hobby. Let's go and start this new business. Let's just do something completely different. And it might be one of those things that you've had on your bucket list. If you haven't had a bucket list or written a bucket list, I suggest that you do one, because it's actually quite good fun to do bucket lists. In fact, I found a bucket list I wrote the other day from about 12 years ago, which was very interesting when I found it, and I looked at it the other day. A bucket list, they're good. It gives you something to focus on for the future. And so, yes, I think we all need a few bucket lists, and see what we can achieve. But this time of our lives, it's about assessing our own mortality as well, you know, and that can be quite difficult to deal with. So it's really just about thinking how our own lives are, what we can do to improve our own well-being in our own lives. Maybe we do need to lose some weight. Maybe we do need to take more exercise. Maybe we do need to stop drinking all the alcohol, and make those changes so that we can live a happier, better, healthier life. Thank you. So again, at this time of our lives, we're thinking, okay, well, maybe we want to take retirement, but we can't stop working because we just can't afford it. Or maybe you're running your own business, or having some private work that you're doing that you feel that you can't actually give that up, even if you really wanted to. So it's all about choices, but some people, you know, have got great choices in which they can retire whenever they want to. You can take early retirement. But for others, it might be that they really can't take an early retirement, and they're absolutely exhausted. their quality of life is pretty poor, and they would just do anything just to stop work. But it's all about, about choices and whether you can afford to do that. If you're carrying on working, and it might be that, within the workplace, there are issues which you're not being supported in the workplace with your menopausal symptoms. And again, it's just finding out what work can actually do to support you and getting the right support so that you are feeling confident, you can continue to do your work. And so it's really just speaking to HR, your wellbeing teams and things like that, and your managers, to feel that to make sure that you are supported within the workplace. Because if you do have to continue and it isn't something that you can stop and take early retirement, you've really got to get this sorted out so that you can continue to work for as long as possible. And then there are other issues that come into this as well. If you've had cancer or you've had other long-term health conditions that have really affected your physical and emotional well-being, then they are going to take their toll on your body and on your mental health. And again, when you're throwing menopause into the mix, menopause can exacerbate a lot of physical symptoms, and rheumatoid arthritis is a classic example. Joint pains and stiffness from the menopause can be exacerbated. And obviously with things like hormone replacement therapy, it can significantly improve some of the symptoms and some of the pain and the stiffness in the joints. So it's just looking at everything in the context, because menopause will affect all these symptoms as well, the lack of hormones. And if you've got some health conditions and you're really poorly yourself, and then you're relying on other people to care for you, all this has a huge strain maybe on your finances, and on your family and on your friends. And obviously on your own physical and mental well-being. We've been living through COVID, still living through COVID. And, if you're caring for relatives, or you've had COVID, or you have got symptoms of long COVID, and how that's impacting upon your health and your own menopause as well. If you've had depression on and off through your life, or you have other emotional problems, depression and mood swings will obviously get worse through the menopause, but it's being aware that some people need to take antidepressants all of their lives, as well as other treatments for menopause as well. But, having low mood and other health conditions can really impact on your well-being, as well as the fluctuations in the hormones. Thank you. Okay, Tammy.
Okay, thanks, Diane. Okay, so let's have a look at about some of the mental health aspects then of the menopause. So falling estrogen, progesterone and testosterone can impact on our brains, and as a result on our mood. So estrogen stimulates serotonin, which is the mood boosting chemical that regulates our state of mind and anxiety. And estrogen also plays a role in the production of endorphins, which are our brain's feel-good chemicals. It's important to understand the difference between longer-term clinical depression and fluctuating moods due to the perimenopause and the menopause. So while symptoms may present in a number of similarities, such as low energy, fatigue, irritability, lower self-esteem, increased anxiety and disrupted sleep, it may be worth keeping a bit of a mood diary, perhaps, if some of these things resonate with you. So some of the practical solutions could be maybe keeping a simple list of recording how you may be feeling each day, perhaps thinking about, is there any changes when you have a period? Could it be when you're leading up to having a period? And you can use things like Balance. So there's a free app which Dr. Louise Newson has created. So some of you may be familiar with this app because we've talked about apps before, and there are other apps. Some of our mobile phones or our smartwatch devices also have female health apps. So it might be worth having a think about how you want to record some of your notes. Go back to good old-fashioned pen and paper, but maybe have a think about if you've had any past experience or you've got any mental ill health history, that you may be a bit more likely to experience mood changes during this time, and you may be a little bit more sensitive to hormonal changes. But I think it's important that we all explore HRT treatments to balance hormones, and it may be that you may see your mood improving, bearing in mind that if you do decide to go down the route of taking HRT, just be aware that you may need to think about tweaking the medication that you get, trying different things until you get that right level of dosage for you. And I know Diane's talked about this, and you've had lots of questions around this. And should I try gel? Should I try the patch? It's all about getting that right level of medication that suits you, so that if you're seeing some positive changes in your mood, that's fantastic, and you're heading in the right direction. But I think it's just really important noting that our mental health is important. It's extremely important to us as individuals to live a happy and a fulfilled life where we feel able to contribute at work, in the workplace, but at home, so that we feel fulfilled and challenged and happy. So, how can Black Country Healthcare help with the aspects of mental health in menopause? For many of you, you may be resonating with some of this or all of it, or perhaps not at all and not yet. But what we do want you to be aware of is that if you do ever feel episodes where you are overwhelmed, or perhaps maybe you'll benefit from speaking to someone for some emotional support, there is that emotional support available to all our staff. Everyone who's on this call today is an employee of the Black Country and the West Birmingham ICS. So the Psychological Wellbeing Hub is available to all of us on this call. And the Psychological Hub has priority pathways which are available. So there's things like confidential telephone calls, videos, face-to-face or digital support. So there will be some level of emotional support that will suit what you need and to suit yourself. And it's a simple process in terms of referring, so you can make a self-referral by following a link which Ree will pop into the chat box. The link will also be shared on one of the next slides, and the link will also be in an email following tonight's session. So there's plenty of ways for you to get access to this link if you need it, but please do share it with your colleagues if you feel anyone else is struggling. It's not just for women, it's not just for those who are facing the menopause, it's for all of us as employees across the ICS. But think about potentially, what other support systems do you have in your workplace? So for a lot of us on the call tonight, you'll have access to EAP, which is your Employee Assistance Programme. You may have staff support. So, for example, Black Country Healthcare staff have got access to staff support. It may be that you've all got an occupational health contact within your organisations. For some of you, you may have access to Remploy, who help with anxiety in the workplace. And then for some of us across the system, we've got access to mindfulness sessions and reflexology. And then for a lot of you, I'm hoping that you do have access to mental health first aiders in the workplace. So these are just a few of the things that we've probably all got some of or most of in our workplaces that we can tap into, as well as friends, family, sessions like this, sessions that we'll have in the future. So just think about what are the right things that will help you to manage your mood, or when you're feeling perhaps a little bit more anxious than normal, or you're just feeling a bit overwhelmed on one day. So I will hand back over now to Diane. Thank you.
Thanks, Tommy. So it's about taking control again, and it's working out what you can actually do to improve your physical and emotional symptoms during this stage, and understanding really what's been going on and why you've been feeling the way that you have. As I said, it is completely normal to be feeling the way that you are and not to feel guilty about it. but it's things about what you can do to take that control back. It's thinking about hormone replacement therapy, and that will improve your physical and emotional symptoms, which again will make you feel better if you're sleeping, you're less anxious, your confidence has improved, your brain functions are working more now, you have more energy. All these things will obviously have a massive impact on your general well-being. But talking to family, friends, talking to your partner, really important. You know, they might be realizing that you're not yourself, but they might be really worried about you, and they might be thinking that actually you're on the verge of leaving them, or you've got some awful health condition that they don't understand because you're not talking to them. So it might be more of a relief that you actually start to open up with friends, family, partner, and explain what has been going on in your head, why you've been feeling the way that you are. And now you'll have more understanding of this, because you'll know that this is part of the menopause, and it's completely normal. But by talking about it, you're going to start to involve them in how you've been feeling, and they'll be relieved, and they'll start the conversation off. And that's what it's all about, isn't it? And talking to your doctor, again, it's just finding out the real cause of what's going on. If it is, when I say just menopause, I mean the fact is it that you would, some HRT, or you need to have some counselling, or are there other causes to why you're feeling like this? And your GP will be able to sort those out for you. And from your point of view, really, it's about learning that, this is the new me. I'm never going to be 20 again, but this is the new me. There's nothing wrong with being menopausal or postmenopausal. It's a case that this is my life. I'm happy with my lot, but I've decided through a lot of reflection, I'm going to move forward and make these great changes in my life and the lives of people that I live with, to make our lives better. Thank you. So it's about addressing your menopausal symptoms. And again, that could be through HRT, but it could be other things as well. So the GP can prescribe other medications. HRT is the first thing that really should be considered. But the things that, if people don't want to have hormone replacement therapy, or they can't have it for whatever reasons, it's looking at all the other things that we can possibly do to improve our health and well-being. As Tammy was saying in the previous slide there about, mindfulness, exercise, and the impact that these things can actually have on our brains, our brain function, our feel-good hormones being flooded through our bodies when we do these certain things, because they calm us down, they relax us, they reduce our stress hormone levels, which will impact upon our female hormone levels as well. And the way that we deal with things, exercise is great if you've pent up anxiety, aggression, or irritability. Just going for a run or going for a swim could just get that emotion out of you, and you would just feel so much better, that relief of actually getting that out. But mindfulness and yoga, absolutely excellent, and this is something that we should all be really focused upon, improving our mental well-being by doing something that actually is free, that can be done in the safety of your own home, sitting in your own armchair or on the floor in the lounge, as well as doing some exercises as well. But we do need to look at our lifestyle factors, because all this will have a huge impact on our long-term health. If we are overweight, we don't take any exercise, then we will have some health problems associated with that. So now's the time where you should be thinking, do you know what, I really do need to sort my life out, and making those changes, and try and, get other people that you live with or roped in as well, and you do it all together. Think about your hobbies and your interests, and they'll bring a lot of joy, and, pursue these interests, focus on them. If you want to do some drawing, do some baking, want to get involved with horticulture, do all the things that make you happy. And because at the end of the day, this is what it's all about. It's about being proactive. And if you feel there's something that you're interested in, something that you're good at, that you have the ability to do, then the case is just do it. And it's stop procrastinating and be proactive, because these are the times of our lives now that we do have to move forward. Let's make the changes. We know what's happened in the past, but let's move on, you know, with fresh eyes and thinking, yes, I'm going to embrace the next part of my life now. I'm going to do the things that I want to do. I've made my bucket list. I'm going to start talking more to partners and friends and family, pull together and work as a team again, and move forward into the next stage of your life, you know, with happiness and good health. Thank you. So just to recap then, we've said about what the menopause is. It's the ending of your monthly periods, and obviously your ability to conceive. You feel the way that you do because of the hormone fluctuations and the deficiency symptoms due to your ovaries not producing hormones anymore. We've talked about how the menopause is impacted upon you and your family, but all the other things that are intertwined with this, you know, struggles within the family, issues with dealing with relatives, bereavement, and you know, relationships can be quite strained at the best of times, but during the menopause they can be particularly strained. So it's being aware of this and all the other contributing factors which we've been discussing as well. But as Tammy has been talking about mental health, it's really important that we do take care of our own mental health, and we do set aside some priority time for ourselves. And talking to family, friends, colleagues, and, you know, very important, always talk to your GP if you've got any health concerns. And then it's thinking about what can help you. So talk to your GP about what you think can help you get through the menopause, and what help that you need and what advice and support you need, whether it's you want to be referred for counselling, or you do want some medications, or you just want to talk to your GP. And you know, these are really important. So it's a case of having choices and knowing what choices are available for you to make you feel better. Thank you. So these are the sessions we've been giving, 2 presentations every month, and this is the last one of this year. Of these sessions that we've been doing. We've been doing them since March, so we've covered virtually all aspects of menopause. And what we do really, it's about getting everybody talking about it. As we know, menopause is a subject that people don't talk about. But I'm hoping that since March we've been talking about it, and it's been getting everybody in the workplace discussing about menopause and supporting each other and finding out what else you can provide within the workplace. So shortly we'll be having the question and answer session. So that can be just related to this subject or anything about menopause that you want to ask me about. And then we'll move into the menopause cafes, in which we'll be just talking a little bit more about this of the presentation tonight and how we feel that it's impacted upon us. And it's a good way of sharing some information or listening to other people's thoughts and opinions of how they've dealt with similar situations to ourselves. Please remember that any issues that you have, do talk to your line managers, HR, wellbeing, occupational health, and getting support from them and seeing how they can support you so you can continue to work and be happy and healthy. January is my last presentation, and that's a perimenopause. But of course, January is when we launch the Menopause Champion. So if there's anybody that's been inspired through listening to the talks on menopause that really thinks that they can bring menopause support into their area of the workplace, please keep in touch with us. Email Tammy and talk to us tonight about it, because we'll be running the Menopause Champions in January, and I'll be giving some information and support about how you can then in turn support people that you work with. My business is called Born to Care. So I said before, I'm a nurse practitioner and I specialise in menopause. I do clinics, private clinics supporting women with menopause, and I prescribe HRT. I give discounts to anybody that works within the health services and public sectors. So just so that you know, I've got quite a lot of information about menopause on my website. The next website there is Health Concern. That's a really good website, lots and lots of really good evidence-based information, and I do refer women to look at those sites. And then of course we've got the British Menopause Society as well, which is obviously it's really good. Then we've got the NHS website there on menopause, a bit more basic, but just give you some good grounding information. And then the last one is the Psychological Wellbeing Hub for the Black Country Healthcare NHS Foundation Trust. Again, it's just understanding that there's help out there for you within the workplace. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Diane. And that sort of concludes the presentation from Diane.